Among the movie producers who have become synonymous with big-budget action spectacles, certainly one of the most prominent is Jerry Bruckheimer. Through his self-named production company, he has excited audiences with the films he has shepherded and has helped jumpstart quite a few notable directing careers. Even with some of the usual ups and downs any producing career entails, Bruckheimer still finds a way to find the next blockbuster material. Jerry Bruckheimer got started working for director Dick Richards, and it did not take long for him to score his first box office success when he produced Paul Schrader's American Gigolo. He then helped launch Michael Mann's feature directing career when he produced his debut film, Thief. Shortly after, he forged a partnership with Paramount executive Don Simpson to produce films together. That first collaboration was Flashdance, which was a huge hit and led to them starting their own production company, Don Simpson, Jerry Bruckheimer Films, and signing a lucrative deal with Paramount Pictures. A movie Simpson saw a lot of potential in that had been kicking around Paramount for a while was Beverly Hills Cop. The script went through many versions and at one point was going to be made with Sylvester Stallone in the lead role. When Stallone was attached, the screenplay was a lot more dramatic and not quite what Simpson and Bruckheimer were looking for. Stallone eventually dropped out and Eddie Murphy took his place, with the script rewritten to fit his comedic sensibilities. Beverly Hills Cop was an enormous success, spending several weeks at #1 and becoming the highest-grossing film of 1984. They scored another hit with Top Gun, which began a collaboration between Bruckheimer and director Tony Scott that spanned many films. Despite mixed reviews, it was a big hit with audiences, even inspiring some viewers to join the Navy. Top Gun is also an example of what would become associated with Jerry Bruckheimer's name, which were films that relied mostly on breathtaking action sequences and spectacle to wow the audience. Bruckheimer himself has been open about the fact that he prefers giving viewers escapism for a few hours, and that's the main thing he looks for when considering which projects to produce. Bruckheimer and Simpson worked with Tony Scott again on Beverly Hills Cop 2, which, while seen as a downgrade from the first film for its emphasis on action over comedy, was still a box office hit. Those successes led to an incredible $500 million 5-picture deal with Paramount to make any movie they wanted. The first movie released under this deal was the racing movie Days of Thunder. Again directed by Tony Scott and starring Tom Cruise, there were high expectations for the film to repeat the success of Top Gun. The film went over budget though, and while it did fine, it was not nearly as big as Paramount was hoping and expecting. The production and release of Days of Thunder soured the relationship between the studio and producers, and they immediately cut ties with each other. Bruckheimer and Simpson then moved over to Disney, although they also had the option to take projects to other studios if Disney turned them down. Their first production for the Mouse House was the comedy The Ref, starring Dennis Leary, which was a box office disappointment. They then made a cop movie for Columbia Pictures titled Bad Boys. Interesting enough, this was originally supposed to star Dana Carvey and John Lovitz. Yes, really. However, in the end, it became a vehicle for Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, who were primarily known for sitcoms at the time. Bruckheimer and Simpson had been impressed with the music videos and commercials directed by a young filmmaker named Michael Bay, so they decided to take a chance and offer him his first feature film. Bad Boys was very successful and proved these two producers still had the ability to find crowd-pleasing audience hits. Back at Disney, they produced a submarine movie Crimson Tide, yet again reteaming with Tony Scott. Starring Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman, the movie performed well at the box office, as did Dangerous Minds, starring Michelle Pfeiffer as a teacher working in an inner-city high school. However, it was around this time that Jerry Bruckheimer and Don Simpson's relationship was having difficulties. Simpson had a notorious cocaine addiction which had been affecting his work, and attempts to help him and send him to rehab did little to change his drug habit. Bruckheimer decided to end their partnership, although they continued working together on Michael Bay's next film, The Rock. In January 1996, Don Simpson died from heart failure caused by his heavy drug usage. The Rock was the last movie he produced and was dedicated to his memory. The movie was another box office success and even got decent reviews from critics, who praised the action and the interplay between Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery. The name of their production company was changed to Jerry Bruckheimer Films, and he would work mostly as a solo producer from then on. The string of Bruckheimer successes continued with Con Air, which again starred Nicolas Cage. At this point, the Bruckheimer blockbuster became a major part of the summer movie season, and Disney was certainly happy to reap the benefits from his ability to bring together tension-grabbing casts, hire directors with an excitement for big action scenes, and the occasional hit single for the end credits too. They were not always critical faves, but Bruckheimer never seemed to be that bothered by it if the general audience still got a kick out of what he produced. Case in point was Michael Bay's Armageddon. The movie was destroyed by critics for its fast-cutting editing style, the absurdity of the dialogue, and the implausibility of the story. Ben Affleck even asked Bay during production why it was easier to train oil drillers to become astronauts than it was to train astronauts to become oil drillers. However, Armageddon was a massive hit, and that film, along with The Rock, was even added to the Criterion Collection, which obviously means they're just as important to cinema history as Seven Samurai and The 400 Blows. Not to say Bruckheimer completely abandoned non-action films. The sports film Remember the Titans was a box office hit, as was the drama Coyote Ugly. An ambitious and difficult production for Jerry Bruckheimer was the World War II movie Pearl Harbor. He and Michael Bay had several disagreements with Disney over the budget, although expectations were high heading into the summer movie season. It performed well, but did not reach the numbers Disney was looking for. The film is also ridiculed by film critics for its mixing of a love story with the attack on Pearl Harbor, which many pegged as just trying to follow the coattails of Titanic. Another Bruckheimer-produced war movie from that year, Black Hawk Down, which was released by Columbia Pictures, was a lot more acclaimed, although only performed modestly. Jerry Bruckheimer took a crack at producing a silly comedy with a script about two friends who go to Australia to do a job for the mob. Produced for Warner Brothers, it was titled Down and Under and intended for adults. But then Bruckheimer saw how well the Disney family comedy Snow Dogs did, with the marketing focusing on a brief scene with talking dogs, and decided to change the movie into Kangaroo Jack and highlight the kangaroo in the marketing. The film was also re-edited to appeal more to families, although several adult jokes remained in the final cut. The film was criticized for its misleading advertising campaign and did not come close to making its money back. A lot more successful was Pirates of the Caribbean, based on the Disney theme park ride. At the time, Disney was looking to turn their attractions into movies, but throughout the production of Pirates, Michael Eisner had problems with the budget and Johnny Depp's performance as a Keith Richards-like pirate captain. The film was almost shut down a few times, but Jerry Bruckheimer was able to convince Disney to keep it going, which says something about his relationship with the studio at the time. Pirates of the Caribbean had so many factors working against it, and yet Bruckheimer's confidence ultimately proved correct, with the film becoming one of the biggest hits of 2003 and giving Disney a new lucrative movie franchise. That same summer, Bad Boys 2 was released to box office success, although it would also become the last film Michael Bay directed for Bruckheimer, as he moved over to DreamWorks Pictures and eventually the Transformers series. In addition to Pirates of the Caribbean, Bruckheimer jump-started another popular franchise for Disney with National Treasure. Audiences really took to these adventures and played into the fascination of American history. Just the simple idea of Nicolas Cage steals the Declaration of Independence was enough to grab people's interest. Despite the success of the two National Treasure films and the desire from everyone involved to make a third film, another sequel has remained stuck in development hell, with multiple starts and stops. Even though it often looks like Hollywood spits out sequels with ease, it's still a difficult process to get one off the ground. One Jerry Bruckheimer production for Disney that did not launch the franchise he hoped was King Arthur. Even though it had a prime summer release date and featured Keira Knightley, fresh off Pirates of the Caribbean, King Arthur flopped at the box office. King Arthur was not the only example of his Midas touch starting to fade. Starting around 2009, Bruckheimer produced a number of underperforming titles for Disney. He tried his hand at a lightweight romantic comedy with Confessions of a Shopaholic, which did okay but was mostly saved by the international box office. There was also the live-action CG hybrid movie GeForce, which Disney hoped would give them their own Alvin the Chipmunks type franchise. It did not. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time brought the video game series to the big screen, and that also did not lead to any further sequels, although it was for a time the highest-grossing video game adaptation. A major embarrassment came with The Sorcerer's Apprentice, a movie inspired by the segment from Fantasia. Even with the presence of Nicolas Cage as a wizard and the big-budget special effects, the film did not seem to excite audiences and flopped. The final nail in the coffin for Jerry Bruckheimer's relationship with Disney was The Lone Ranger. He, Gore Verbinski, and Johnny Depp were passionate about making the movie, and Disney, remembering that Pirates of the Caribbean beat the odds against it with the same team, took a gamble on this expensive western. The Lone Ranger instead became one of the biggest box office bombs in history. This string of disappointments ended Bruckheimer's long-running partnership with Disney, although he would continue to be involved in any potential Pirates of the Caribbean and National Treasure sequels that entered development. He then signed a first-look deal with Paramount, although it has amounted to very little. One film he produced for Paramount was the years-in-the-making action movie Gemini Man. Directed by Ang Lee and starring two Will Smiths, that movie was another box office flop for Bruckheimer. However, he has done very well producing sequels to a couple of his beloved hits. One was the third Bad Boys movie, which was the highest-grossing Hollywood film of 2020. Admittedly, that was because of the pandemic, but the over $400 million Bad Boys for Life made before the world shut down showed there was still life in that series. The other sequel was Top Gun Maverick. That was in development for a while, with Tony Scott originally returning to direct. The project stalled for a bit after his unfortunate death, but got going again when Joseph Kosinski signed on. During the height of the pandemic, Apple offered to buy the film from Paramount, but they were refused, as Bruckheimer and Tom Cruise were insistent that Top Gun get a traditional theatrical release, and that if it needed to be delayed for that to happen, so be it. Their instincts proved correct, as the movie became an enormous success, displaying incredible staying power during the summer and even getting strong reviews from critics. Top Gun Maverick also earned Jerry Bruckheimer his first Oscar nomination for Best Picture. So what does Bruckheimer Films have planned for the future? Well, there's a new Bad Boys sequel in the works, although filming is now on pause due to the actors' strike. A fourth Beverly Hills Cop movie with Eddie Murphy is currently in post-production and set to be released on Netflix. Kosinski and Bruckheimer working on a Formula One movie starring Brad Pitt that's being produced by Apple, and he is developing a movie based on the popular Beyblade toys for Paramount. Bruckheimer Films is even working with Disney again on Young Woman in the Sea, starring Daisy Ridley as Olympic swimmer Gertrude Edel, and of course there's still continuing discussions about where to take the Pirates of the Caribbean next. Even though the company has encountered its share of box office flops, it's difficult to deny the impressive track record of Jerry Bruckheimer Films and its founder's ability at producing movies that make audiences want to go to theaters. See you next time.